Good afternoon to everybody. Tayo po ay magkakasama as classmates for the past 3 Saturdays and up to this morning. And we will continue to be classmates for the next 4 more Saturdays under this course. But for this afternoon, please allow me the privilege to share with you the Vision 2028 of the Episcopal Church in the Philippines and the 5 marks of mission. Alam niyo po, I also lecture at St. Andrew's Theological Seminary. I lecture on canon law, which is focused on the constitution and canons of our church. And in my class, I always tell my students that I don't expect them and I don't require them to memorize the constitution and canons. What is important is that they understand basic canonical principles and that they are able to apply them. But there are two things that I require my students to actually memorize or to know by heart. And these are Vision 2028 and the 5 marks of mission. I guess that tayo rin, no? I guess every Filipino Episcopalian should also know by heart itong ating Vision 2028 at ang ating 5 marks of mission. So let's start with Vision 2028. For the 10-year period from 2019 to 2028, the ECP envisions itself to be a church of scripture-rooted, spirit-fired, and discipled parishes. So the actual vision statement states that by the year 2028, the ECP shall celebrate a church of scripture-rooted, spirit-fired, and discipled parishes. Now, this vision 2028 evolved out of a church-wide and almost year-long visioning process that we did in 2018. And it was done in all the dioceses, participated in by congregations, by institutions, by organizations. And all of this, the results of those exercises, visioning exercises in the congregations, dioceses, institutions, and organizations, these were firmed up at a national meeting that we did in November 2018. Now, while it was a visioning exercise, it was also intended to look into and to actually sum up what we have done for the period from 2008 or 2009 up to 2018. So it's also for the 10-year period of what we then referred to as our Vision 2018. We will talk more about that at some point this afternoon. So in that meeting in November, we first did, a summing up, an evaluation of the 10-year period. We look at our accomplishments from that period or in that period, and then we built into those accomplishments, and that is how Vision 2028 was evolved. Now, so Vision 2028 took off from those remarkable achievements. Now, before we dig into, bago po natin pag-usapan yung Vision 2028, it's very good to look into ano ba yung nangyari before that. Kasi if we're saying that Vision 2028 was grounded on the accomplishments of Vision 2018, maganda pag-usapan na rin natin what happened in 2018 or in the 10-year period before that. Kaya lang, if you are talking about Vision 2018, kailangan din malaman natin kung anong nangyari before that. The 10-year period also before that. And that would be the 10-year period from 1997 to 2007. Because that's, and what we had at the time was what we referred to as Vision 2007. Pag-usapan na rin din natin mamaya yan. Now, all of this, we talk about 2007, we talk about 2008, and we talk about Vision 2028. All of that will take us back to the time when we became an autonomous and an independent church. An autonomous and independent church, which in the Anglican Communion is referred to as a province. Okay? A province is an autonomous and independent church in the Anglican Communion. So let's go back to the time when we became a province. Now, I would like to take some time to talk about the process of starting out as a province, as an autonomous church, because among all the churches, and there are a number of churches which, like us, used to be part of our mother church, the Episcopal Church in the United States of America, or what we then refer to as ECUSA, ECUSA, ECUSA. So there were a number of churches that used to be part of ECUSA that have become autonomous just like us. And even up to this time, there are still churches that are still part of the mother church, which are also starting a journey towards autonomy. So among all these churches, those that have become autonomous and those that are still, starting the journey, the ECP is the poster boy or the poster girl for successful autonomy. The ECP is the poster boy or the poster girl for successful autonomy. This is widely acknowledged, actually, not only within the circles of the mother church, but even in the Anglican Communion, that we are a story of success in terms of autonomy. So it's widely acknowledged, it has been repeatedly declared, and it continues to be studied. We have been invited to share the story in various churches, and since 8 or 10 years ago, we have also received almost every year delegations from various churches to come here to the Philippines to learn about our autonomy story. So, we are the poster boy and we are all the poster girl for successful autonomy. But that hasn't actually been a walk in the park. Our experience with autonomy has actually been a very, very challenging experience. We went through the most difficult challenges of an institutional church. Uh, while it has really been a success, but it did not start that way. Okay, so let's go back, flashback to May 1st, 1990. May 1st, 1990. Remember the date, May 1st, 1990. There was a big celebration that was held at our national cathedral, uh, as it was the inauguration of our church as the 28th province of the Anglican Communion. So we became a province. We were the 28th province, and that signified our autonomy and independence from our mother church. Those of us who, and I guess that maybe I can see maybe 2, 3 persons here uh, who were there like me on the date, May 1st, 1990. It was a day-long celebration. We had a big service in the morning, and then the festivities continued in the afternoon, and it went all the way to a program in the evening. So it was a huge, huge gathering. It was a festive occasion that took up the whole day and even went through the evening. Now, you know, uh, in hindsight, in hindsight, in the midst of that festive occasion, in the midst of that big celebration, there was actually a very unpleasant thing that happened on that day. And what was that? We are all, I guess that many of us, not all, but many of us here are parents, and so we are parents. So we have children. So think about this. If your child comes to you, on a beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning, he comes to you and says, Dad or Mom, I am now of age. Uh, Here in the Philippines, that would be 18 years of age. So I'm now 18 years old, and uh, I am now an adult. So I'm going to move out of your house. I'm going to establish my own household, build my own family, and follow my own dreams. So I'm moving out of your house, and I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to establish my own household. But 60% of my budget, 60% of my expenses, you will have to pay for that. So as a parent, what would you say if your child comes to you and say that? Ano pong gagawin natin? I guess that you would say, son or my daughter, you're crazy. That doesn't happen. If you are an adult, you are an adult, you are on your own. Hindi nangyayari yan na 60% of your budget, I'm going to be, your parents are going to be to provide for that. If you become independent and you establish your own household. The unpleasant thing, however, is that is actually what happened to us on May 1st, 1990. We declared to the entire Anglican Communion, that we are now an independent and autonomous province, but the reality is that 60% of our budget was being paid for by our mother church. So you can see in here, 60% was equivalent to 1.16 million dollars, and only 40% was being raised from our own resources. So in terms of peso value, that's 29 million pesos from the mother church, and 21 million pesos being raised from our own local churches. 60% of our budget was coming from the mother church. And at the time, while in hindsight, we can say that that is an irrational course. How can that ever happen? Eh kung independent ka, di ba? If you're autonomous, you're autonomous. You're on your own. But in our case, more than one half, it's even more than one half of our support, of our budget, was to be provided by somebody else. And at the time, nobody called us crazy. Wala namang nagsabing, you have a problem. Ba't naman ganyan? I guess that for many of us then, it was even, for many of us, it was, at the time, it was unthinkable. It was unthinkable that we would be 100% self-supporting. There was no way we could ever do that, we would not even imagine that to happen on that day and at the time. Because, we are not talking about, here, we are talking about just a few $100,000, but we're talking about more than $1 million here. In terms of money value, you're talking about 29 million pesos. So what was important is that at the time, what we had was that, ganito talaga yan, but at some future time, we need to be financially self-supporting. But 1990 and then 1991, 1992, so 2 years have passed. 2 years since we became a province have passed. And wala pang malinaw na plano. There was no concrete plan on how we can really be autonomous, some people talk about constitutional autonomy, those were the favorite words during the time. We were constitutionally autonomous, although we were not yet financially autonomous. But there's no such thing. There's no such thing as when you're autonomous, you're autonomous. When you're independent, you're independent. Canonically, constitutionally, and financially. Wala namang ganyan na ito, independent ka, pero sa isang bagay, hindi ka independent. Wala namang ganyan But anyway, the situation at the time was ganyan talaga. But at some point, hindi naman po pwedeng forever yan So at some point, you've got to work on your autonomous status. And so, kaya lang yun 1991, 1992, there was no concrete plan. Wala namang lumalabas na plano on how can that happen. So, until in 1993, we finally came up with what was referred to as the 15-year step reduction plan. The 15-year step reduction plan. So this was a plan for our financial autonomy. How can we become financially autonomous? Through the 15-year step reduction plan. Because under this plan, for a period of 15 years, as you can see in here, Actually, it's the period is from 1993 to to there's something wrong in here. Anyway, under the 15-year, we will correct this later, no? But if you can see, itong ano kasi, itong it's from, this is supposed to be from 1993 to 1997. And this should be followed by 1998 to 2002. And then there should be another period here from 2003 to 2007. So under the 15-year step reduction plan, what this means is that in a 15-year period from 1993 to 2007, the support from our mother church, the annual support from our mother church, will be gradually phased out. Every year marireduce yan. It's a reduction of the dollar support. It's a reduction of the subsidy, annual reduction within a 15-year period. So you can see in here, for the first 5 years, 1993 to 1997, it's going to be placed at $800,000. And then it goes down to $533,000 for the next 5 years, 1998 to 2002. And then for the last 5 years, it's going to be $266,670. Okay, so it's going to be a gradual phase out, a gradual reduction in a 15-year period. And by the end of 2007, what this plan is saying is that at the end of 2007, then the support becomes zero. December 31, 2007, the support becomes zero. And at that point, we can then say that we are financially autonomous dahil magiging zero na yan, no? Zero level. Okay? Now, so it was a good plan. You know, it was a 15 years, matagal nga yan, 15 years. 15-year plan. Everybody thought it was viable. Everybody thought that it was doable dahil wala naman tayong gagawin eh. You know, you just reduce. You just gradually reduce the amount of money that we are receiving every year. So, the gradual phase out of subsidy under the 15-year step reduction plan was seen as a viable and doable plan. The effect, however, was that it plunged the entire church. It plunged the entire church into a serious and recurrent financial crisis. You know, what does that mean? You know, para kang you know, sometimes I really hate to use the metaphor, but it's just like a drug addict. You know, a drug addict is addicted to something else, addicted to drugs. Now, if you try to reduce the drug intake, then that person who is addicted goes into a very painful withdrawal process. That is what happened to us. While the 15-year step reduction plan, the gradual reduction was a viable and doable plan, it actually resulted into a painful withdrawal process for us. Every year, recurrent budget deficit. Every year, budget deficit. Catechists, you know, we used to have full-time catechists and evangelists before. Catechists, our catechists and our evangelists, they number more than 100. You know, we had more than 100 catechists and evangelists. We were forced to retire them We're forced to retire them under a special retirement program. The salaries of our clergy and our remaining church workers in some of our dioceses, these were delayed. The provision of salaries were delayed for as long as 6 months. So imagine you don't receive salaries for 6 months, delayed for as long as 6 months. And then we have to shelve a lot of development programs and projects simply because we did not have money to pay for this. So that was how painful the step reduction plan was. The gradual withdrawal of subsidy, and because of these difficulties. Because of these challenges that we were facing, the leadership of the church initiated a visioning process in 1997, to uplift our sagging spirits. At the time, the morale of our workers, the morale of our people was low. Our spirits were sagging. And so the visioning process that was initiated by the leadership of the church at the time was intended to uplift our sagging spirits and to boost our morale. And that visioning process in 1997 resulted into what we referred to as ECP Vision 2007. It was a vision for a period of 10 years, from 1997 or 1998 to the year 2007. So Vision 2007 states that by the year 2007, we envision the Episcopal Church in the Philippines to be a renewed church, fully self-supporting, and reaching out to proclaim God's love. That should be love. God's love in the far reaches of the nation. So the vision, talk about being a renewed church. It talk about a church that is reaching out, and it talk about a church that's fully self-supporting. So it affirmed our commitments under the 15-year step reduction plan, that by the year 2007 or by the end of 2007, we should already be fully self-supporting. Okay. Now, it was a reinvigoration of our work as a church. The Vision 2007 provided some kind of a fresh, direction, some kind of a fresh guide, to attain what we wanted to attain by the year 2007 amidst those challenges and those difficulties that we were experiencing at the time. Okay, now in 2004, we tried to look at 2004 was just 3 years away from 2007. Okay, 2004, tatlong taon na lang bago mag 2007, and you know what's going to happen to 2007. What's going to happen is mawawala na ang suporta dyan. Mawawala na yung dollars that we were receiving from our mother church. That is what's going to happen in 2007. And so in 2004, March 2004, the church held a national meeting. Nagkaroon ng malaking meeting yan. And the meeting was held in Baguio. At the meeting was intended to look at where we were at the time. Saan ba tayo ngayon? 3 taon na lang, magiging 2007 na. Saan ba tayo ngayon? So it was intended to look into where we were as it relates to our vision for 2007. Okay. So in that meeting, we look at, of course, when you make a review of what happened previously, you will be talking about the end of 2003. So we look at the financials for 2003, and this is what we can see. Our local income as of end of 2003 has greatly increased. Napakalaki ng increase in our local income. We work very hard to attain this. Everybody worked very hard to substantially increase our local income because we were moving towards a zero level support from the Mother Church. So everybody worked very hard, and our local income substantially increased. Which means that the subsidy from the Mother Church has correspondingly also substantially decreased. If you can see in here, our local income amounted to 57 million, while the support from our Mother Church went down substantially to 9.3 million. So our total budget at the time, our total expense at the time in 2003 was 67.92 million. And with this total cost, we actually ended the year. We ended the year 2003 with a substantial budget deficit of 6.5 million pesos. It was actually the biggest deficit that we had since 1990. And even earlier than that, because even before 1990, we were already incurring deficits. And so 2003 was our deficit for at the end of 2003 was the biggest at 6.5 million. So we are here in a meeting March 2004, and we were looking at these figures. We see that napakalaki ng pagtaas ng ating local income. Everybody worked very hard for this, you remember in 1990, 60% of our budget was coming from the Mother Church, But with these figures, the support from the Mother Church went down to, I think, about 14%, So ang laki ng binaban. It was a remarkable increase in our local income and decrease in the subsidy from the Mother Church at 14%. And so everybody was saying, ginawa na namin, we did everything. We worked very hard to attain this. Lahat na ng pwede namin gawin, ginawa na namin yan. And at this point, we have reached, the wall. At wala na kaming ibang mapapagkuhanan pa. We have reached the end of the road for local sourcing. Hanggang dyan na lang talaga kami. Our people really did a remarkable thing, and they were saying hanggang ganyan na lang talaga. So this is our maximum capacity. Okay. And so with that sharing at that meeting, what do you do? What do you do when people talk about that? At that meeting, napakalaki ng temptation. ano na ba ang gagawin natin kung ganyan ang picture? If that is the picture, and that is how hard, how difficult our people have gone through, and they have reached the end of the road as far as local income sourcing is concerned. Ano na ba ang gagawin natin? At that meeting, with the financial situation of the church, napakalaki po ng temptation. There was a strong temptation to go to our mother church. Punta tayo sa Episcopal Church USA, sa Ikusa, which is our mother church. At mag-appeal po tayo, makiusap po tayo, nabigyan tayo ng extension. Dahil hindi na po natin kaya, we have reached the end of the road in terms of local sourcing. Wala na tayong mapagkukuhanan pa. And so, what we're going to do is to seek an extension of 3 years. Talagang hindi natin kaya na mawala yung remaining annual subsidy, which is about 9.3 million. Hindi na natin kayang mawala yan. Dahil last year na, 2003, ang laki ng deficit. And now, the annual support now is 9.3 million. Hindi na natin kayang mawala yan. So, makiusap tayo sa ating mother church na bigyan tayo ng 3 taon. Please give us 3 years extension for the subsidy to be concluded, to be finally concluded. So with that as the resolution that was coming out, as the best course of action, yung discussion sa meeting na yan, the discussions during that meeting focused on paano natin sasabihin sa mother church yan, di ba? Of course, madaling sabihin yan eh. Madaling susulat lang naman natin. We'll just appeal for 3 years extension. Pero how do we do it in a way whereby we can be assured, Kailangan mangyari ang 3-year extension has to happen. Otherwise, talagang napakalaki ng problema natin if that is not approved. So, paano ba natin gagawin yung appeal in a way whereby the mother church would approve that extension? Alam nyo, dun sa meeting na yan, it was actually a 1.5-day meeting. And at the first day, magpa 5 o'clock na sa first day, yun ang pinag-uusapan This is what we are going to do. We will seek for a 3-year extension. So instead of concluding the subsidy, the annual support in 2007, it will be concluded in 2010, a 3-year extension. And at the time, the late Prime Bishop Ignatius Oliva, he was then the Prime Bishop, and sabi niya, why don't we sleep on this? Let's take a break. Anyway, 5 o'clock na rin. Let's take a break and come back tomorrow. Meron mo naman tayo bukas. We are meeting in the morning tomorrow. And we will finalize the resolution. And so that's what happened. We all, we took a break for the day. And we took a rest. We slept over the discussions and the resolution, and we came back the next morning. Came back the next morning to finalize the resolution and to talk about the best strategy, how to go about making the appeal for an extension. Okay. So the next day, 9 o'clock, we resumed, and then we look at the resolution that we agreed the day before. But something happened in that meeting. Something happened in that morning. which led us, to change, and to completely change the entire resolution, to come up, in fact, with a completely opposite resolution. Ganito kasi yan. Since 1990, since we became autonomous, every meeting that we had, lahat ng meetings natin since 1990, wala tayong ibang pinag-uusapan kundi yung subsidy. That is always the most contentious item in the agenda. Every year, yan na lang pinag-uusapan. Yan ang pinag-uusapan. That is the problem, di ba? That every year we wanted to address that, especially when the gradual phase out started. We can spend 1 day, 2 days talking about that. Pag-uusapan kung how we're going to survive with that reduction. But you see, since 1990, that subsidy has always been the problem, That has always been the most contentious item in the agenda. Yun ang problem always. So, if you're talking about asking for an extension, 3-year extension, di may extend na naman ang problem. May extend na naman ang problem. Then, 2008, 2009, 2010, wala na naman tayong ibang pag-uusapan kundi yung subsidy na yan. So, if the subsidy was the problem, kung yan ang problema na wala na tayong ibang pinag-uusapan kundi yung subsidy na yan, bakit hindi natin tanggalin ngayon yan? Why don't we just end it now? Para mawala na yan. Let's get that subsidy out of us now. Sabihin na natin, wala na yan. And so, instead of asking for a 3-year extension, why don't we in fact advance the end of subsidy to, instead of extending it to 2010, why don't we advance the end of subsidy to this year, 2004, para mawala na yung problema na yan. Di ba? I remember in that meeting, everybody just kept silent. But eventually, I guess that we were really guided by the Holy Spirit because, despite the shock that everybody had, we actually agreed to go for it. We ended the meeting at 12 o'clock, noontime that day, and agreed that that is what we're going to do. Maraming nagko-complain, paano na yan, diba? But we agreed that that is what we're going to do. We will end it now. Actually, since the subsidy for that year, 2004, was already being released, partially released na yan dahil the release was being done quarterly, diba? So the first quarter was already released. So ang pinag-usapan dyan is that, okay, let's receive the subsidy now. Let's receive the subsidy this year. But starting January 1, 2005, our church, we shall now operate entirely on our means and resources. So starting January 1, 2005, no subsidy from our mother church shall be used for operational purposes. We will actually be entirely on our own. Okay? And so, it wasn't as simple as that, because from March all the way to December, ang daming meetings. We went to all these meetings, to work this out. And finally, starting January 1, 2005, that is what we did. January 1, 2005, the ECP now started to operate entirely on its own. And at the time, when we went into that, ang daming mga, just lot of reservations and fears, anxieties being expressed. People were saying, nagkaroon na tayo ng napakalaking deficit nung 2003, 6.5 million na deficit, tapos mawawala pa yung 99.3 na yan. We would be looking at a possible deficit even from a simple mathematical computation. Then we're talking about a deficit of more than 10 million. So this year, 2005, napakalaking deficit, 10 million. People were talking about salaries being unpaid. Hindi na natin kaya mabayaran ng mga sweldo. So all those grim scenarios were being expressed. All those anxieties, all those fears were being expressed at the time. It's going to be the mother of all, financial crisis. So ganyan lahat ang lumalabas when we went into the year 2005. However, what actually happened, what subsequently happened in the year 2005 was almost miraculous. What subsequently happened was almost miraculous. Because for the first time since 1990, for the first time in 15 years since 1990, we ended, from 1990 to 2004, every year budget deficit. For the first time in 2005, we ended the year with a budget surplus. So for the first time in more than 15 years, the ECP ended the year with a budget surplus, not just of 10,000 pesos, 100,000 pesos, but we ended the year with a surplus of 3 million pesos. So that was a miracle. That was a miracle. And, as a result of that, we finally realized a very simple lesson. That has eluded us for more than a century. Napaka-simpleng lesson that has eluded us for more than 100 years. And what is that lesson? That it is only when we stop looking at others, only when we stop looking at others, that we begin to look into ourselves. That we begin to look into ourselves, to realize and to appreciate who we are, what we have, and to support and develop ourselves with what we have. It's a very simple lesson. Everybody knows that. Napakasimple, lahat naman tayo, if you are living with your parents, if you are being supported by your parents as a child, lahat naman ang binibigyan nila kulang eh. What they give is never enough. It's never enough. Simple lesson. And so it was a huge success that at a time when we were entirely on our own, at a time when we did not have any subsidy from the mother church, at a time when we started surviving on our own, that is the time we actually ended long years of deficit. And that was the time when we started to realize a substantial surplus. So it was a successful autonomy story. And, let's see. It was asset-based church development, or ABCD, at its best. ABCD, asset-based community development, asset-based church development. You know, they say that that was a trend then in the development world. In our case, we did not just read about ABCD. We actually lived it out. We actually practiced it. And what happened with our financial autonomy as a church was ABCD, asset-based church development at its best. And so that ended Vision 2007. That ended Vision 2007. And with that momentum, naka-momentum na tayo. You know, by the way, lahat ng, hindi naman lahat, di ba? But most of what I'm saying here, I have written it down. You know, so we will be circulating this to everybody. I have written this down. And hindi lang naman yung surplus natin noong 2005 ang milagrong nangyari dyan. That was not the only piece of miracle that happened to us in 2005. There were other, miraculous things that happened there. And you will read that in the document, but because of time constraints, we will not get into that. The point is that we are now in a very positive momentum, and we wanted to take advantage of that. And so at the time, within 2005, 2006, 2007, we were on our own now. We were financially self-reliant. We were completely on our own, relying on our own resources. And then in 2008, we did another visioning process. Dahil natapos na yung 2007. And carrying that momentum that we had in 2007, or under Vision 2007, we crafted Vision 2018. And Vision 2018 states that by the year 2018, the ECP shall be a dynamic and vibrant church of caring, witnessing, and mission-oriented parishes. We wanted to carry on the momentum of Vision 2007. We wanted to continue the practice of ABCD, asset-based church development. And we wanted to live out and continue the momentum of self-reliance. Now, Vision 2018 is not only about building parishes, but a big part of the vision. One of the main goals, in fact, of Vision 2018 was to advance our congregations into self-supporting, self-governing, and self-propagating parishes. At the time when we started with Vision 2018, we only had 32 full-fledged parishes in the entire ECP. 32 parishes in the entire ECP when we started Vision 2008. So that means that since the time that the church was established in this country, 1901, up to 2008, or within a period of 107 years, ang na-establish po natin na full-fledged parishes ay 32. So now, and so one of our main goals was let's make all our congregations parishes. Let's make all our congregations, let's enable all our congregations, to experience and to embrace parish life, full-fledged parish life. So, gawin natin silang parishes lahat, di ba? Lahat ng congregations natin. That was a big part of Vision 2018. Now, again, because of, hindi lang naman yan hindi lang naman yan yung Vision 2018 but it was a big part. And because yan na naman one of the main goals is to establish parishes. Again, at the beginning of the vision, people thought that it was an impossibility. Alam niyo, yung time na yan, so sinasabi nila kasi, people were saying, kung sa 107 years nga sa 107 years nga 32 lang ang nakayanan natin. You know what? In 10 years, ano yung sinasabi niyong lahat ng congregations natin ay magiging parishes? Kung sa 107 years lang, sasampu na nga lang ang naging parish natin so what you're talking about is really an impossibility. That's impossible. So there was a lot of hesitance, if not outright rejection of that part of the vision. People were saying, that's impossible. May mga pare before, we had priests at the time who would say na, alam nyo, itong sinasabi nyo na gagawin nating parishes ng mga congregations natin, mangyayari lang yan during the second coming of Jesus Christ. That was what they were saying. Ganun ang pagtingin nila. That it was something that was impossible. And but we went on with it. Dahil yun ang vision natin That was our vision. Vision 2018. Yun ang vision natin. And we went on with it. And again, nung una, the first 2, 3 years, 3, 4 years, hirap na hirap, diba? Hirap na hirap tayo. But eventually, the initial hesitance gave way to a desire. Sige nga, gawin natin yan. Let's work together. To make that vision happen. Sige, pagtulungan natin. Let's work very hard to make that vision happen. And in that review that we had in 2018, November 2018, we look at ilan na ba ang naging full-fledged parish natin. Hindi naman lahat hindi naman lahat ng mga congregations natin naging parishes, diba? But by the end of 2018, from 32, the number of full-fledged parishes grew to a total of 101. 101 was more than 3 times what we had in 2008 when we started the vision. It was more than 3 times the 32 that we had in 2008. So what we are saying here is that from 32 naging 101. So what we are saying here is that sa 10 taon, for the 10-year period from 2008 to 2018 or 2009 actually to 2018, ang na-establish po natin full-fledged parishes was more than twice, di ba? More than twice what we have established in 106 years. So you think about that. You think about that. Ang ginawa mo in 10 years is more than twice what you have accomplished and what you have done in 106 years. Okay? Now, so it was another huge success. Napaka-imposible na. Many of those congregations, many of those congregations that are part of the 101 parishes. Kung titingnan mo yan, 5-6 years before, titingnan mo, it's really impossible. Napaka-imposible naman na mangyayari ito. I guess that retired priest, Father Augusto Kuning. Augusto Kuning is a retired Episcopal priest. He's now, I guess, 87 or 88 years old. And the last time I talked to him was in December of last year. Dahil he's from Bisao Mountain Province, so palagi naman kami nagkikita pag ako nagbabakasyon dyan. So at the time, he told me that or the time when we talked, sabi niya sa akin, I never imagined that I would live to see that day. I would live to see that day. That all our congregations here in Bisao, under our deanery here in Bisao, or the deanery, Bisao deanery, all our congregations here would become full-fledged parishes. I never imagined that could happen, but I'm so happy that I have lived to see that day, So that was how it is, karamihan dyan, sa marami dyan, sa 101, napaka-imposible. You're thinking about them 5, 6 years, 8 years ago, napaka-imposible that they can become full-fledged. But that is what happened. And we're only talking here about full-fledged parishes. Marami ka pang mga aided parishes dyan, marami ka pang mga percentage parishes. So it was a remarkable achievement, malaking bagay yan. It was a huge achievement that we did under 2018. Now, some well-meaning friends, may mga kaibigan tayo na who would say that, alam nyo, itong Vision 2018 nyo parang napaka-parochial naman yan. Napaka-parochial naman yan. It is directed towards the development of your existing congregations, naka-focus sa parishes at naka-focus naman sa parochial interest ng simbahan, di ba? The narrow interest of the church as an institution. So it was a critique actually at Vision 2018. Simply because, or largely because, ang nakikita nila kasi dyan is yung parishes, yung parish building. And before I continue, I would like to take a break here. The guys, our technical staff are signaling me to take a break. Isang oras na tayo so we'll just take a break para mag-rest din yung mga gadgets natin, and also before we go on to the next phase of our journey. So let's take a 10 minutes break from here.